The slap echoed through Seoul National Hospital's ICU like a gunshot. Mrs. Park's diamond ring splitting open Zara's lip while she screamed about getting someone like her away from her son. What this wealthy woman didn't know was that the black nurse bleeding on the hospital floor was engaged to Kang Ji-hoon, Seoul's most feared underground king, and his phone was already ringing with the alert that someone had hurt his woman. In 72 hours, Ji-hoon would systematically destroy Mrs. Park's entire life, her reputation, her social standing, her family's business, all because she made one fatal mistake. She put her hands on the wrong person. But the real shock wasn't the revenge. It was what Ji-hoon built from the ashes of her destruction. Here's what nobody tells you about what happens when violence collides with underground power in Korea. This is the true story of how one slap destroyed a woman's entire world in 72 hours and created something beautiful from the ashes. By the end of this, you'll understand why the woman who assaulted a nurse is now a social pariah who lost everything, and why the mafia boss who could have killed her chose something far more devastating instead. Before we get into the destruction, and trust me, it's coming, hit that subscribe button, because next we're dropping more stories like this, and you're not going to want to miss that. Now, let's get into this. Zara's phone kept ringing. Blood dripped from her split lip onto the sterile white tile. Mrs. Park stood over her, chest heaving, diamond ring still glittering with the nurse's blood. And security hadn't moved yet, because in Seoul, money freezes people in place. But Min Seok had moved. Ji-hoon's bodyguard was already in the doorway, his hand inside his jacket where Zara knew he kept his gun, his face drained of all color. Not fear for himself. Fear of what was coming. Because he'd just sent that text. The one that would end Mrs. Park's world. The phone stopped ringing, which meant Ji-hoon was done asking questions and had started making calls. 8 minutes. That's all Mrs. Park had left of her old life. Here's what Zara hadn't told anyone about her relationship. She'd seen Ji-hoon destroy people before, a business rival who tried to sabotage him, a politician who took bribes and didn't deliver. But she'd never seen him destroy someone for her. That was about to change. The argument had been small that morning. Stupid even. Take Min Seok with you today, Ji-hoon said, already dressed in that black-on-black combination that made him look like death in designer clothing. Zara was pulling on her scrubs, the navy blue fabric a stark contrast to the Louis Vuitton and Hermes hanging unused in their closet. I'm going to a hospital. What's going to happen to me at a hospital? His jaw tightened. That micro-expression she'd learned meant non-negotiable. You know what I am. You know the enemies that creates. I know you're paranoid. I'm in love. There's a difference. He crossed to her, his hands finding her waist. Please. Just this once. Don't fight me on security. She didn't know it yet, but agreeing to take Min Seok would be the only reason Ji-hoon didn't kill someone today. Here's what most people don't understand about Korean underground kings. They don't rule through constant violence. They rule through the threat of it. One demonstration of power can buy you years of compliance. Ji-hoon hadn't needed to hurt anyone in 8 months. Mrs. Park was about to reset that clock to 0. The Lamborghini had hit the pole at 118 kilometers per hour. Park Tae-min should have been dead. Would have been if the car hadn't cost more than most Seoul apartments and been engineered for exactly this kind of stupidity. Female nurse, 32-year-old male, critical condition. The paramedics were already rattling off vitals as they wheeled him in. Zara's hands moved on autopilot. IV lines, pressure points, calling out, orders to the residents trailing behind Dr. Kim. This was muscle memory. This was why she'd spent 6 years in nursing school and 2 more in emergency medicine. Pupils responsive, BP stabilizing, he's fighting, that's good. She worked fast, her fingers steady even as her mind cataloged the injuries. Drunk driving, again, because Cheeble kids never learned. She saved his life in 11 minutes. In 20 more, his mother would try to end hers. Mrs. Park's son he entered like a hurricane wearing Chanel. My son. The words came out in Korean first, then fractured English. Where is my son? Dr. Kim intercepted her. Mrs. Park, he's stable. We need you to... But she wasn't listening. Her eyes had locked on Zara. Still standing by the monitors. Still wearing the blood of the boy she'd just saved. And something in Mrs. Park's face shifted. Zara made her first mistake right then. She met Mrs. Park's eyes directly. In Korean social hierarchy, that's a challenge. From a foreign nurse to a chaebol wife. That's a declaration of war. Who is this? Mrs. Park's English was sharp, precise, Designed to cut. Why is she touching my son? Professional. Stay professional. Ma'am, I'm the senior ICU nurse on duty. I helped stabilize. I want someone else. A Korean nurse. Not a request. A command. Remove her from his care. Dr. Kim stepped forward, his voice firm. Mrs. Park, Nurse Thompson is one of our best. I don't care. Louder now. Patients in other beds stirring. I want her away from him. Now. Zara should have walked away. Should have handed off the case. Should have remembered that pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. But she'd spent 6 months in Korea swallowing disrespect. And today, just today, she'd had enough. I understand you're upset, Zara said, her voice level despite the rage building behind her ribs. I'll have another nurse take over. She moved to leave. That should have been the end. But Mrs. Park's hand shot out, nails digging into Zara's arm, through the scrub fabric. Hard enough to bruise. People like you always think you can touch what doesn't belong to you. The words came out hot and venomous. Coming here, taking positions you didn't earn, putting your hands on families like mine. Ma'am, let go of me. Mrs. Park shoved her instead. Zara stumbled back, catching the bed rail, her clipboard clattering to the floor. Everyone says keep your head down in these situations. Stay professional. Don't escalate. Zara had followed that advice for 6 months. And where had it gotten her? Still being grabbed, still being shoved, still being treated like she was less than human. So she stopped following advice. Your son was driving drunk, Zara said, her voice shaking with 6 months of suppressed rage. He could have killed someone. I saved his life. And you're treating me like I'm the problem? She watched Mrs. Park's face transform. Fear melting into hatred, melting into something worse. The slap came so fast Zara didn't even raise her hands. The Cartier bracelet caught her cheekbone first. Then the rings. Diamond. Platinum. Something else she couldn't identify because her brain was too busy processing the fact that she was falling. Wall. Then floor. Her elbow cracking against a tile. Copper flooding her mouth. Patient charts scattered like paper snow around her. Silence. Complete. Absolute. From the floor, hand pressed to her bleeding face, Zara saw it all. Mrs. Park, hand still raised, satisfied. Dr. Kim, frozen in shock. Min Seok in the doorway, gun hand twitching, making a choice between protecting her and starting a firefight in an ICU. And her phone. Ringing. Ji-hoon's name flashing. Their regular check-in call. Except Min Seok had already texted him, which meant Ji-hoon already knew someone had put their hands on her. And he was calling to find out if they were still breathing. 6 months ago, Zara was a broke nursing school graduate who'd moved to Seoul for a fresh start. 3 months ago, she met a man at a charity auction who bid $100,000 for one dinner with her. 8 weeks ago, she found out what he really did for a living. Today, she was about to find out what he did for her. She answered with blood on her chin. Hello? Are you hurt? 3 words. Calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that precedes Category 5 destruction. My face. She slapped me. Don't lie to me. Zara, are you hurt? Each word spaced like bullets loading into a chamber. She'd never heard this voice. Not in 8 months of loving him. This was someone else. Something else. My mouth is bleeding. My cheek is swelling. But I'm fine. Who touched you? And here's where Zara made her second critical choice of the day. She could lie, protect Mrs. Park from what was coming, or she could tell the truth and watch Ji-hoon become exactly what the world thought he was. She chose truth. A patient's mother, Mrs. Park's son he. Security has her. Put Min Seok on the phone. She watched. Min Seok's face drain of what little color remained as he listened to Ji-hoon's instructions. Rapid Korean. Too fast for her intermediate skills, but she caught fragments. Cameras. Evidence. Don't let her leave. And worst of all, Junbi-hae. Prepare. Min Seok handed the phone back, his hand shaking. Baby. Zara started. I'm 8 minutes away. Ice. Pure ice. Don't let her leave. If security tries to release her, tell them who you are. Use my name. Ji-hoon, please. She put her hands on you. She made you bleed. A pause. Then, softer. Somehow worse. There is no world where that woman walks away without consequences. Do you understand? Yes. Good. I love you. And I'm sorry. The line went dead. And Zara realized. She'd just unleashed something she couldn't control. Something that had been waiting 8 months for an excuse. If you've ever wondered what happens when you hurt someone a Korean mafia boss loves, you're about to find out. But here's what nobody tells you. The violence isn't the worst part. The systematic destruction is. If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more Afro-Korean romance stories. Drop a comment telling me what you think is about to happen when Ji-hoon arrives. Now, let's see what happens next. Security had separated them. Zara in one conference room with Ice, and a nurse friend dabbing at her split lip. Mrs. Park in another with her husband, who'd arrived pale and shaking. Min Seok at Zara's door like a sentinel. The ICU had gone quiet. That quality of silence that meant everyone knew something terrible was coming. You should press charges, her friend whispered in English, eyes darting to the door. That was assault. Zara touched her swelling cheek. It's being handled. How? The hallway outside went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that happens when apex predators enter the territory. He walked in like death in a suit. Black on black. 6 men behind him, all armed, all wearing that same flat expression that meant they'd killed before and would again. Hospital security took one look and stepped back. Even the administrator went pale. But Ji-hoon only looked at Zara. Gentleman versus underground king. Morning coffee versus midday murder. The person who brought her breakfast in bed versus the one who made police investigations disappear with a phone call. She was watching both versions collide in real time. He crossed to her in 3 strides. His hands cupped her face with devastating gentleness. Careful, so careful of her injured cheek. His eyes traveled over the damage. The swelling. The bruise forming purple and yellow. The ice pack. The blood on her scrubs. The cut inside her lip. When he looked at her again, she saw murder. Not anger. Not rage. Cold, calculated murder. Let me see. It looks worse than it is. His hand trembled against her cheek. Trembled. This man who'd stared down Yakuza bosses without blinking. Who'd negotiated with triads over dinner. Who controlled half of Seoul with absolute authority. His hand was shaking. Who is she? Zara made her third critical choice. She could minimize it. Let him think it was just a slap, just a moment of maternal hysteria. Or she could tell him everything, every word Mrs. Park said, every ounce of venom behind it, and watch him choose exactly how much destruction this woman deserved. So she told him. All of it. The drunk driving, the critical save, Mrs. Park's immediate hostility, the demand for a Korean nurse, the escalation, the grab, the shove, the words, people like you, don't belong. Taking what isn't yours. And finally, the slap. With each detail, Ji-hoon's expression got colder. By the time she finished, he looked carved from ice. She said you didn't belong, he repeated, voice flat, dangerous. Yes. Grabbed you. Yes. Put her hands on you in violence. Yes. He stood, buttoned his suit jacket with precise, controlled movements. Stay here. This won't take long. Zara should have stopped him. Should have asked him to just take her home, should have known that whatever happened next would change something between them. But she didn't. Because part of her, the part that was tired of smiling through hatred, wanted to watch. Here's what most people don't know about Seoul's underground. There are rules. You don't kill civilians. You don't involve outsiders. You keep business clean and quiet. But there's one exception to every rule. If someone touches what's yours, all bets are off. Zara watched through the glass. She wasn't supposed to. Ji-hoon wanted her protected from this. But she stood up, walked to the window, and watched the man she loved become a monster. The door opened. Ji-hoon walked in. Mrs. Park was mid-complaint. Something about disrespect and proper treatment. Her voice cut off when she saw him. Because power recognizes power, and Mrs. Park had just realized she'd hit someone under the protection of Seoul's most dangerous man. Who are you? Mr. Park demanded, trying to sound authoritative. Failing. You can't just... Ji-hoon moved faster than thought. One moment standing in the doorway. Next moment Mrs. Park was against the wall, her feet barely touching the floor, Ji-hoon's hand around her Chanel collar. Mr. Park lunged. 2 of Ji-hoon's men stopped him with hands on shoulders. Gentle, firm, final. My name is Kang Ji-hoon. Loud enough for everyone to hear. The woman you struck is my fiancée. Do you understand what that means? Mrs. Park's eyes went wide. She tried to speak. Couldn't. That means you just signed your own death warrant. He dropped her. She collapsed, gasping. Except I'm not going to kill you. He straightened his cuffs. Death would be mercy. One of his men, Yi Jun, pulled out a tablet. Started reading in that flat voice people use when they're destroying lives. Park Sun-hee, age 53, married to Park Dong-min, CEO Park Industries, net worth $2 billion USD, serves on Seoul Children's Hospital Board, International Women's Foundation, Korean American Cultural Center. 2 children. Park Tae-min, current patient, Park So-young, studying in London. Stop, Mrs. Park whispered. Please. By tomorrow morning, Ji-hoon interrupted, voice like winter. Every board receives footage of you assaulting a healthcare worker. Witness statements, medical reports, documentation of your behavior. Mr. Park stepped forward, voice shaking. Mr. Kang, we can settle this. Name your price. Ji-hoon laughed. Cold, cruel. I have more money than your family will see in 5 generations. I don't want your money. Yi-jun, Ji-hoon said calmly. Show them what we found. Here's what Zara didn't expect. Ji-hoon's team had investigated Mrs. Park in the 20 minutes since the slap. 20 minutes. And they'd found everything. Yi-jun swiped the tablet. In 20 minutes we've uncovered Mrs. Park has multiple service worker complaints. Filipina maid fired, claimed verbal abuse. Vietnamese delivery driver reported harassment. 3 restaurants have her flagged for mistreating foreign staff. Pattern of behavior suggesting she views certain people as beneath her station. Mrs. Park's face went from white to gray. How? I own people, Ji-hoon said simply. Investigators, lawyers, people who find anything on anyone in minutes. And you, Mrs. Park, have a pattern. This isn't your first time. It's just the first time someone fought back. He crouched to her level. She pressed herself against the wall. Here's what happens next. And Zara watched him lay out Mrs. Park's destruction like a business plan. Systematic. Thorough. Inevitable. You will issue a public apology. You will resign from every board. You will donate 10 million won to organizations supporting healthcare workers. You will thank Nurse Thompson for saving your son's life. And if I refuse? Then I make one phone call, and your husband loses every government contract. Another call, and your son faces criminal charges for drunk driving. This is his 3rd offense, not his 1st. A 3rd call, and your daughter's student visa gets revoked. He stood. 24 hours. After that, I start making calls. And Mrs. Park? He looked back. If you ever come within 100 meters of my fiancé, I will consider it an act of war. And you will lose everything. He walked out, leaving Mrs. Park sobbing, leaving her husband pale and shaking, leaving their world in ruins. And when he came back to Zara, the monster disappeared like it had never been there. Ready to go home? Soft voice, gentle hands, like he hadn't just destroyed a woman's entire existence. Zara looked at him. Really looked. At the man who brought her coffee in bed, who learned English phrases from rom-coms to make her laugh, who'd just threatened a family with total annihilation because someone hit her. Yeah, she whispered. Take me home. He gathered her, carefully, like she was made of glass, and carried her out. Behind them, Mrs. Park's phone was already ringing, the first board calling for her resignation. In 72 hours, she'd have nothing left, but Zara didn't know yet what Ji-hoon was building from the ashes. The city blurred past through tinted windows. Ji-hoon held her hand the entire drive, his thumb tracing circles on her palm, his jaw still tight with residual violence. I canceled your next shift, he said quietly. You're taking a week off. I don't need. Yes, you do. His grip tightened. Not painful, possessive. You need time to heal, and I need time to make sure this never happens again. What he didn't say. He needed time to finish what he'd started. Mrs. Park's destruction was only beginning. 3 hours ago, Zara was just a nurse doing her job. 2 hours ago, she was bleeding on a hospital floor. Now she was watching the man she loved systematically dismantle a woman's entire existence, and realizing she didn't want him to stop. He helped her out of her bloody scrubs with shaking hands. Not from fear. From rage still simmering just beneath his skin. Shower with me. Under the hot water, he washed her hair. His fingers worked through the strands with devastating gentleness, massaging her scalp in slow, soothing circles. He cleaned her wounded face with the care of someone defusing a bomb. One wrong move and he might shatter completely. Kissed her shoulders, her neck, her forehead. No urgency, no heat. Just tenderness that felt like an apology for the violence she'd witnessed. "I'm sorry you had to see that," he whispered against her wet skin. "I needed to see it." He pulled back, water streaming between them. "Why?" "Because if I'm going to be your wife, I need to know all of you, not just the parts you think I can handle." His hands stilled in her hair. "Are you afraid of me now?" This was the moment. The inflection point. She could lie, tell him what he wanted to hear. Or she could give him the truth that would either bind them closer or break them apart. Never. She cupped his face, water streaming over her fingers. "I'm afraid for you sometimes. Afraid of what this life costs you. But of you, never." Relief crashed across his features like a wave. He pulled her close, holding her under the water until they both stopped shaking. Later, wrapped in robes on their balcony, he told her something that changed everything. "I almost killed her," Ji-hoon said, staring out at Seoul's glittering skyline. "In that room. I had my hands on her throat and I almost—" He stopped. Swallowed. "You saved her life by being on the other side of that glass." Zara waited. Let the silence stretch. Knew he needed to say this. "What stopped you?" "You. The version of me that you see." He looked at her and his eyes were raw, vulnerable. "The man who brings you coffee in bed. Who learns stupid English phrases to make you laugh. Who wants to be better than my father was." His jaw tightened. "That man wouldn't survive if I became a murderer. And losing that man would mean losing you. So I chose." "Chose what?" "Justice over vengeance. Destruction over death. You over the monster." And that's when Zara understood. She wasn't just marrying into his world. She was changing it. Here's what nobody tells you about loving dangerous men. You become their conscience, their reason for choosing the hard path instead of the easy one. Mrs. Park was alive because Zara existed. Remember that. Zara woke to her phone exploding. 47 missed calls, 89 texts, hundreds of social media notifications, all in the 6 hours she'd been asleep. Mrs. Park's apology was everywhere. Posted on Instagram. 200,000 followers. The post had 50,000 comments in 6 hours and was trending across Seoul with a hashtag Zara couldn't believe. Accountability for assault. She read the apology out loud, her voice shaking. "I want to sincerely apologize to Nurse Zara Thompson of Seoul National Hospital. Yesterday, in a moment of extreme stress regarding my son's medical emergency, I behaved in a way that was completely unacceptable. I struck Ms. Thompson and made inappropriate comments. There is no excuse for my behavior." The apology continued, but the comments were what made Zara's hands shake. About time wealthy people faced consequences. "My sister is a Filipino nurse in Korea and deals with this treatment constantly. Thank you for speaking up." She hit her and thought she'd get away with it because of money. Disgusting. This apology sounds forced, but at least it's public. The nurse saved her son's life, and this is how she got thanked? I hope she loses everything. Ji-hoon appeared behind her, already dressed for business, phone in hand. "The hospital released a statement supporting you this morning. I made sure of it." She clicked the link. Seoul National Hospital's official statement was crisp, professional, and utterly damning. Seoul National Hospital stands firmly behind our dedicated staff member, Nurse Zara Thompson. The incident yesterday was unacceptable, and we have zero tolerance for violence against our healthcare workers. We are grateful for Ms. Thompson's service and proud to have her on our team. Then her phone rang. The caller ID made her stomach drop. "Mom." "Oh no," Zara whispered. Ji-hoon's eyebrows rose. "You haven't told your family?" "I was going to call them today," she answered. "Hi, Mom." Zara Nicole Thompson. Her mother's voice boomed through the speaker, loud enough that Ji-hoon heard every word. "Why am I finding out from Facebook that my daughter got assaulted in Seoul and is engaged to someone the internet is calling an underground king?" Ji-hoon mouthed, "Underground king?" with genuine amusement. "Mom, I can explain." He gently took the phone. "Mrs. Thompson? This is Ji-hoon. It's an honor to speak with you." Silence. Then, suspiciously, "What exactly do you do, young man?" "I'm in private security and real estate investment, ma'am." "And you're engaged to my daughter?" "Yes, ma'am, I love her very much." Did you have anything to do with that woman's very public apology? Everything to do with it, ma'am. She put her hands on Zara. I made sure she understood that was unacceptable. Another pause. Then, to Zara's absolute shock. Well, at least somebody is protecting my baby over there. Now, when am I meeting you in person? And don't think I didn't notice you said engaged. When's this wedding? By the time the call ended 15 minutes later, her mother was planning their wedding, demanding Ji-hoon fly her to Seoul. First class, young man, if you're as wealthy as the internet says. And had somehow extracted a promise that they'd visit Atlanta within 3 months. Zara stared at him. You just charmed my mother in 15 minutes. I like her. She's protective of you. I respect that. He handed back her phone. Plus, she's funny. Where do you think you get your sense of humor? Her phone buzzed again. This time, a news alert. Her stomach dropped as she read the headline. Hour 12. Seoul Children's Hospital Board accepts Park Sun-hee's resignation. Public statement cites need for personal reflection on unconscious biases. Hour 24. International Women's Foundation removes her from board. No statement, no explanation. Just gone. Hour 36. Park Industries loses its largest government contract. News reports. Administrative review of vendor relationships. Stock price drops 8%. Hour 48. Park Tae-min's drunk driving case reopened. New witnesses emerge. Police discover evidence of 2 previous incidents covered up by family money. Hour 60. Park So-young's London University announces investigation into academic integrity concerns. Anonymous tip included plagiarism evidence. Hour 72. Mrs. Park is uninvited from 3 charity galas, dropped from group chats. Her social media engagement collapses. She's become Seoul's cautionary tale. But on the 4th day, Ji-hoon came home with something Zara didn't expect. If you think this story is about revenge, you're only seeing half of it. The real transformation was happening inside Ji-hoon, and Zara was about to see what happens when a monster chooses to build instead of destroy. What's this? Zara asked as Ji-hoon handed her a large manila envelope. Open it. Property deeds, business licenses, architectural plans. She stared at them, confused, her brain not quite processing what she was seeing. You bought a medical clinic? Not just any clinic. He sat beside her, and his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. A community health center. In Itaewon. He spread the plans across their coffee table. Specifically designed to serve foreign workers and migrants. Free or low-cost care. Multilingual staff. Cultural competency training required for all employees. He looked at her. I thought you might want to work there a few days a week. Help people who face the same challenges you did. Zara couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The plans showed a modern building, welcoming spaces, treatment rooms, a community area. Signs in 5 languages: Korean, English, Tagalog, Vietnamese, Nepali. You wanted to make a difference, he continued, his thumb brushing away the tear sliding down her cheek. Now you can. And I'll fund whatever you need. Equipment, staff, supplies, everything. Why would you do this? Because you turned your pain into purpose. Because you're the kind of person who gets hurt, and then thinks about how to help other people avoid the same experience. He cupped her face. Because I love you and I want to give you the world. Everyone expects mafia bosses to destroy, to take, to break things. Ji-hoon was doing something more dangerous. He was building, and what he was building would outlast any revenge. I don't need the world, Zara whispered. I just need you. You have me, always, but I'm giving you the clinic, anyway. And that's when she understood. Ji-hoon's revenge on Mrs. Park wasn't just destruction. It was this. Building something beautiful from hatred. Turning violence into healing. Making sure that what happened to Zara would help prevent it from happening to others. 3 weeks later, they stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Itaewon Community Health Center, and Zara finally understood what justice really looked like. The building was more beautiful than the plans had promised. Modern. Welcoming. Large windows flooding the space with natural light. Signs in 5 languages. A waiting room that didn't feel like a waiting room. Comfortable chairs, children's play area, magazines in multiple languages, a coffee station. Ji-hoon stood beside her at the ribbon cutting, his hand on her lower back, looking proud. His men were positioned discreetly around the perimeter, because he was still Ji-hoon, still protective, still incapable of letting her be completely unguarded. Press, cameras flashed, community members gathered, Hospital colleagues came to support her. This was real. This was happening. Zara stepped up to the microphone. This center exists because healthcare should be accessible to everyone, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to crack it open. Regardless of nationality or economic status. I know what it's like to be treated as less than, to have your skills questioned because of where you're from or what you look like. But I also know that with support and resources, we can create change. She looked at Ji-hoon. I'm grateful to my fiancé for making this dream a reality, for believing in this mission, for showing me that power can be used for good. The crowd applauded. The ribbon was cut, and the first patient walked through the doors, a Filipino woman with 3 children, crying with relief that someone would see them without judgment, without prejudice, without the fear that had kept her from seeking care for months. Zara spent the afternoon treating patients, using her skills to help people who'd been turned away from other facilities, who couldn't afford care, who'd been discriminated against. A Vietnamese construction worker with an untreated infection. A Nepali student who'd been afraid to go to a hospital because of language barriers. A Nigerian entrepreneur who'd delayed cancer screening because she'd been mistreated at other clinics. And with each patient, Zara felt something shift inside her. This was what justice looked like. Not just punishment for the guilty, protection for the innocent, from bleeding on a hospital floor to opening a community health center in 3 weeks. That's not a revenge story. That's a revolution. That evening, back at the penthouse, she found Ji-hoon on the balcony with champagne and takeout from her favorite soul food restaurant in Itaewon. Somehow, he'd found the one place that made mac and cheese that tasted like home. How was the first day? He asked, pulling her into his arms. Perfect. Overwhelming, but perfect. She nestled against his chest. We already have 10 applications for next month. Word is spreading fast. We'll expand. Buy another building. Whatever you need. Ji-hoon. She pulled back to look at him. Do you realize what you did? What do you mean? You could have just destroyed Mrs. Park. Made her suffer and walked away. But you built something. You turned my pain into healing for hundreds of people. Her voice cracked. That's not revenge. That's love. He finished quietly. That's what love looks like in my world. Protecting you wasn't enough. I needed to make sure what happened to you would never happen to someone else who didn't have protection. She kissed him then, tasting salt from tears she didn't realize she'd been crying. You're not the monster everyone thinks you are. I'm whatever I need to be. Monster to protect you. Builder to honor you. Both. Always both. And 3 months later, standing at their wedding, Zara realized he'd been right all along. Her mother, 2 sisters, 3 aunties, and grandmother flew in from Atlanta. Ji-hoon's family, his mother, 2 brothers, various cousins, welcomed them like they'd known each other for years. The wedding was a perfect fusion, traditional Korean ceremony in the morning, American-style reception in the evening. Zara wore a white wedding gown for the Western ceremony and a red hanbok for the Korean one. Ji-hoon wore a tuxedo and traditional Korean formal wear, somehow making both look like they'd been designed specifically for him. They exchanged vows in English and Korean, promising to protect each other, honor each other, love each other through everything. At the reception, her mother pulled her aside, tears in her eyes. Baby, I was worried when I first heard about Ji-hoon, about his business. The internet said things. She stopped, cupped Zara's face. But seeing you together, seeing what he built for you, seeing how he looks at you, that man loves you with everything he has. He does, Mama. That's all a mother can ask for, that her daughter is loved and protected. She hugged Zara tight, and Zara could smell her mother's perfume, the same one she'd worn since Zara was a child. This is your happy ending, baby. Zara looked across the reception hall at Ji-hoon, who was laughing with her uncle, both families mingling seamlessly, 2 cultures blending into something new and beautiful. No, Mama, she said softly. This is my happy beginning. Here's what they don't tell you about Korean-American weddings. It's not about the ceremony. It's about watching 2 families decide that love matters more than tradition, that protection matters more than prejudice, that building together matters more than staying separate. As the night continued, as they danced and celebrated, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The assault, the fear, the anger, the blood on the hospital floor. But also, the justice, the healing, the love, the purpose she'd found. Mrs. Park's hateful action had been meant to diminish her, to put her in her place. Instead, it had catalyzed everything good in her life now. The clinic, the advocacy, the deeper commitment to helping others. Ji-hoon pulled her onto the dance floor for their first dance as husband and wife. He held her close as they swayed to a song that blended American R&B with traditional Korean instruments. Because of course he'd commissioned a custom arrangement. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured against her ear. "How grateful I am for all of it. Even the hard parts. Because they led me here. To you. To us. To this life we're building." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile he only showed her. "We're going to change this city, you and I. Make it better. Safer. More just. One patient at a time. One destroyed abuser at a time," he added with a slight smirk. She laughed, the sound pure and joyful, and he caught it with a shaw. Kiss. They danced until midnight, surrounded by family and love and promise. And when Ji-hoon finally carried her out of the reception to begin their honeymoon, because of course he insisted on carrying her, traditional and possessive to the end, Zara looked back one last time at the celebration. 2 cultures, 2 families, 2 worlds perfectly blended. Later, in their hotel suite overlooking Seoul, Ji-hoon opened the balcony doors to let in the night air. The city sparkled below them, endless lights stretching to the horizon. "Come here," he said softly. She moved into his arms and he wrapped her in one of the hotel robes, holding her against his chest as they looked out over the city he controlled, and she was learning to love. "Do you know what you've done?" he asked quietly. "What?" "Changed me. Completely." His arms tightened around her. "I used to think power was about fear. Control. Making people afraid to cross you. But you showed me something different." "What's that?" "That real power is building something that outlasts you. That the strongest thing you can do isn't destroy your enemies, it's protect your people so well that they can build something beautiful." He turned her to face him. "Mrs. Park is gone, erased. But that clinic? That's going to help people for decades. That's real power." Zara touched his face, feeling the slight stubble on his jaw. "You were always capable of this. You just needed a reason. You're my reason. My conscience. My better half." He kissed her forehead. "My everything." They stood there in the Seoul night, 2 people from different worlds who'd found in each other exactly what they'd been searching for. Here's what Zara learned from Mrs. Park slapping her in that hospital. Power without purpose is just violence, but power used to protect, to build, to heal. That's justice. Ji-hoon could have killed Mrs. Park, could have destroyed her family completely, could have made her disappear, and no one would have questioned it. Instead, he gave Zara a clinic, gave vulnerable workers a safe place, turned her pain into someone else's healing, made sure that what happened to her would become the reason it didn't happen to others. That's not revenge. That's transformation. That's the difference between a monster and a king. And as Ji-hoon carried her to bed, as he loved her with the same intensity he'd used to destroy her enemy, as he whispered promises of forever against her skin, Zara understood that she hadn't just married into his world. She'd changed it, made it better, made him better, made them both better. From a slap in a hospital to a wedding that united 2 families. From blood on the floor to healing in a community center. From hatred to hope. That's the real story. Not the violence, not the destruction, the building, the becoming. The choice to turn pain into purpose and rage into redemption. And as sleep finally claimed her in Ji-hoon's arms, in a city that had once felt foreign, but now felt like home, Zara's last thought was simple. This is what justice looks like when love has the power to enforce it. If you made it this far, drop a comment telling me, have you ever faced a situation where someone mistreated you and got away with it? How did you handle it? And would you have stopped your partner from going further, or let them handle it their way? Subscribe because next week's story is about how Zara and Ji-hoon actually met. And trust me, it involves a charity auction, mistaken identity, and her accidentally insulting Seoul's most dangerous man to his face. You're not going to want to miss that. Until then, remember, you deserve protection, you deserve justice, and you deserve someone who will fight for you when you can't fight for yourself, and then build something beautiful from the ashes.